So, okay, we're back. So we have card 1, we have card 2, and we have card 3. And this reading this week is to support a lot of you who are going through huge shifts, huge changes at the moment, a lot of uncertainty, and maybe tough decisions that you have to make, and maybe a lot of wounding coming up because there's a lot of triggers for us all. The more that we're clearing, that makes us more easily triggered and more vulnerable and more reactive. So as I said, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So the first card that I have is from, these were given to me, these cards, by a friend of mine. And the deck is Senga 3, and it's the portal cards, right? Now, this card is all about belonging, right? And it's about helping you recognize that you're not alone, no matter how much you feel you're alone. Right, I'm just going to put my light on. My light's getting a wee bit dark here, I think. Right. No matter what you think, you're not alone. No matter how, there's quite a few things that I'm not saying I've been on the receiving end, that's not the right way to explain it, but there's a lot of people I've been in contact recently who it's very apparent the way that what's showing up in their life is they think they're alone. And even alone in the spiritual community for different reasons, or they feel as if they're being maybe unfairly treated. They feel as if they're being isolated. They feel as if, maybe a victim in some sort of party, but they feel as if they're not belonging. They're not belonging to certain tribes. They're struggling in some capacity. And there can be a lot of things going on there. But what I want to tell you is that you're not alone, right? No matter how you view things differently, no matter how your experiences may be different from other people, and no matter where you're at your point where you maybe feel alone because maybe the status quo of what other people believe may be different from your own, or your experience seems different to what your even family or the people around about you, and it can seem strange and it can seem strained, right? And that can make you feel like the orphan archetype. If you think about the orphan archetype, they feel orphaned, they feel disconnected from the family unit, from the tribe, right? They feel as if they belong to another family, or in some way they're being neglected or orphaned out, right? Rejected or, abandoned. We all have that archetype within us, and it shows up in different ways. And no matter if you look at yourself as a star seed, an earth seed, some sort of light work, and you believe that, every human being has that feeling of feeling alone and not being part of the tribe in some capacity in parts of their life. That wounding is there in everybody. But one of the things that has happened particularly, I mean, it's went on before even the last few years, everything that's went on in the last few years. Many people in the spiritual community that were very awake could see things for decades and a lot longer than the other people couldn't see because they weren't awake. Their consciousness wasn't at a certain level, or they didn't have maybe certain, there's certain aspects of their gifts that weren't open or clear enough, right? And sometimes people's pathway, their soul's journey, their own personal experiences open them up to certain things. And they would have felt very alone because they would have been a very, very tiny minority. Now, the reality is now we have far more light workers, people who would regard themselves as star seeds and, different aspects, the layers to that in relation to light workers, right? And also if you think about truth warriors. Now, there's a lot of truth warriors who are not, I'm not saying they're not light workers, but they're still so in their aggression and their desire for truth, they are not coming in with a level of awakening or consciousness. They're stuck in the trap of just finding truth, that they're losing their light, or they're not able to capture the light. So we've got a lot of that going on at the moment. But again, they feel isolated, abandoned from their tribe or their family because they've maybe saw things that their family is now starting to see. A lot of us are starting to see many people around us now. Some of us are more lucky than others that we have maybe family members or other people in our community or our close circle that have been more switched on, and we've got a certain level of support. Some people have not had that at all, but now they're discovering more of their friends and family starting to wake up to lots of things. But they still, even though they are waking up, because they are coming from a different level of consciousness and a different level of looking at things and spirituality, they feel alone. Now, one of the things, this card is all about sisterhood and understands that no matter, as a light worker, how you see things, because we do all see things different and we all have different life experiences. And we can all see things differently at different stages of our journey and in relation to what we're here to do, right? We can only go on our own truth and what we see. I'm a great believer that you never go by just what someone tells you or teaches you in a book or teaches you, rather than what you experience on an experiential level. And what I mean is not just your own experience, but what other people, because sometimes our experience is personal, it's our interpretation of something, right? But what's happening at the moment, many people, because they are shifting into new areas and ways and being able, and they're getting insights, they're seeing things, they're accessing things that feel out of their comfort zone, but also it's kind of, some of it, just for some people, it feels as if it threatens what they were already told and what they were already teaching, because it kind of, some of it can slightly contradict, or it means that we really have to really shift and take the risk of completely shifting into this new paradigm where maybe their audience, their clients, the way that their business was built on, it's moving away from that into a completely different level, right? And they may feel alone because they feel as if maybe the people that they presently are mostly connecting with or mostly surrounded with, and even the client, are at a certain mindset, a certain consciousness. But guess what? That means that they have to go to another level. But one of the interesting things, there's more people shifting than that you think, and there's more people that are more open to other things than you probably imagine, right? It's like the more that you have the ability to understand that we are all, no matter even if we look at things differently, as a light worker community, at our core, we may have differences. We may have, it's like I am one of 7 girls in a family. We're all completely different. And in many ways, I wouldn't say we are in any way aggressive or anything. We're all very deeply caring and we're all very heart-based, but we can be strong-willed, right? We can all be strong in our own opinions, right? And then maybe division. But at the end of the day, we all love each other and we're still sisters. And we still want what's best for everyone, right? That's what it's like. And we have to remember that we all have our wounds and we all see things differently. You're not alone. No matter where you feel you're at the moment, there's probably more sisters and more light workers and other people in the spiritual community that are looking at things the way that you look at it, right? But and it can be lonely. I know when I started getting into healing, now it's nearly about 33 years ago, I started getting into exploring things. In some ways, I'm not saying I didn't feel alone. There was things I did. There were some aspects because I was so unwell. I was pushed, and I was very fortunate. It was my father that found the first healer that I went to, who, he wasn't just a Reiki healer. This guy had something else. He had a natural healing gift. It was just, that was one of his modalities. And that person, having the backup of my father and my mother to go and get this healing. And then also my mum went and trained in my first Reiki course. My mum and my aunt went with me to train. So that was a really good anchor that I had, that backup. in many ways it was classed quite abnormal. A lot of people were a wee bit wary of that. And if we think about Reiki, for example, Reiki is one of the most basic foundational types of healing. It's often just a stepping stone for some people. There's lots of different stepping stones and different types of healing, but for a large majority of the people in the West, it is often been for many years. I know it's different now. It was the first stepping stone. But there was times in my life where I felt, because there was jokes about it being the witch and there was lots of things I went through, even my own career, my own business, just to do with my health. I was very isolated. And it wasn't until I started building contacts with other, more therapists, that made such a difference to my life. And then when my friend David appeared in my life, that's a bizarre story, but that was such a really strong support in my friend Karen, and then also Mary. And I started to build up a really strong, good network of healer friends, and Irene Smith, who was a local therapist, very good, strong, where we had each other's back. And we may not always agreed with each other, but you start to recognize that at a core level, even if you have difference of opinion, we all have the same, we all have a similar mission. We all have maybe different fragments of that mission, but we are all, like, if you think about the sisterhood, we're all wanting just what's best. And it's so important that you're not alone. And no matter how you may find that other people don't understand you, we're all here with a unique gift and a unique skill and a unique story, right? And just because, for example, if I disagree with something that you do, right, or it's different in my opinion, doesn't mean that devalues you in any way. Just like you may not agree with a lot of the things that I say, that's okay. That's what it's all about. I know when I first started my journey, I was maybe 5 years in my business. I'd already been down the spiritual journey for 15 years and studied many things and done a lot of things, volunteering things. And I remember couple who I was friends with, tried to open me up more spiritually and awaken me to other things. And I wasn't ready. And I just kept thinking, that's just lunatic. It frightened the life out of me. And now look back and I think, oh my goodness, they were trying to do what was right for me. They were trying to pull me up and trying to help me. I wasn't ready. I wasn't at a level of consciousness. They were far more spiritually aware in consciousness in certain areas. There were other areas that I would say some things I had maybe more discernment about something. So that's why there was maybe more fear, because I didn't automatically believe. Like, I learned the hard way that what a teacher tells you and what you're taught in a certain modality doesn't mean it's 100% truth. It's their perception in there. And we all can have that. But no matter how much which is going on, we are all wanting the same thing. We all want a new earth. We all want to create a new earth. And one of the things that I've noticed, there's a lot of division within different things going on in the world and different people. Also, truth, what people would class as truth warriors and light warriors. And they all see things differently. And sometimes it's to do with levels of consciousness, but it's not always to do that as well. We've got to understand that everybody has a different mission. Everybody has different life experience, and everything will see everything differently, because the world is not a straight road. And if we even think about vibration and frequency, a lot of people think that everything, you just go up, go up, and almost like everybody will see things the same. It's not meant to be like that. We all have a unique essence, essence and a soul mission. We all have different things that have happened so that we can play a different part. Because if we don't see things from different angles, we cannot be the missing jigsaw. So if you think about different archetypes, the creative archetype and the artist and the innovator will often see things from the creative and the individual, being more innovative and whatever. They're going to be very different from the sage archetype, who looks at things from more, they like to be more analytical in respect to, they tend to absorb and read a lot of high academia or sacred teachings and wisdom. And then what they do is they make out of that, it's more like factual information rather than emotional. Where creatives tend to be their channel, but there's also a lot of emotion involved. And if you think about the lover archetype, there's a lot of emotion involved as well. They're all about connection, relationships, right? The caregiver is very much about relationships as well, and very much about heart-based and giving. But no archetype is more important than the other. They're all needed. If we think about the warrior and the hero is needed. We need someone with more the masculine and the energy when it is required. If you look at what's going on at the moment, one of the biggest challenges in our, not even biggest challenges, one of the big, I suppose, problem or weakness that's been in society for many decades and maybe even hundreds of years is demasculination, which, because, there's a lot about the feminism movement keeps talking about it's masculinity that's destroyed the world, but in many ways there's been a lot of demasculinating, and taking that like if you look at a lot of males feel as if they have no power anymore and they don't have confidence or strength, and we're seeing a society that is now bullying the citizens, trying to control the citizens, and there's not that balance, right? There's trying to remove everything. There's a healthy, there's a light and shadow. Community is so important at the moment, because when we gather together as light workers, as we gather together in a sisterhood, and it doesn't mean it's just try to represent, because these cards are more female. When we start to stop comparing ourselves to other people and recognize we all have different things. I'm very much about trying to speak my divine truth, but that might not mean be similar, to somebody else's. We have to be able to speak our truth. We have to be able to share our experience and our story without feeling as if we should be holding back just because someone may be offended or not agree. We have to be able to speak our truth, but we also have to be able to respect and value each other, and that's the important thing. And none of us get it 100% right, because we're all having a human experience. But the reality is that we have to start coming together more, but also recognizing that at a core level, we are all the same, and that we all have this big mission to bring the light into the world. But part of that light is being able to shine the light on the dark, right? And one of the hardest things, I know a lot of you personally, the ones that I know personally, who are finding it very tough by a lot of things that they didn't know. So there's many layers to awakening. There's some things that people are very aware of and they've been aware of, and then some things they didn't know. And then there's some people who really didn't know anything that's going on, and they're starting to figure out what's going on now, and they're finding it, very painful, a bit of a shock. And, I think a lot of people in the spiritual community assume that awakening is just about awakening spiritually to the more powerful than you are. And of course, but it's about awakening also. The golden age of awakening is awakening to what is going on, what has been hidden in society, what is hidden in politics, government, all sorts of elements for control and power. And many people are really struggling because they didn't even know what was going on right in front of their doorstep, and other things that's going on. So we're talking about things like the 15-minute something. And I'll say, you could say towns, but it's called something else. And you could see all the other things to do with money, currency, what's they're trying to do with currency. And then there's other even real, they're on the scratching the surface in relation to the other darker things. I find it quite interesting. Even our local churches and chapels are actually discussing the dark elements of what's going on, which you would never believe in 100 million years ever before, that they would actually start talking about certain things that are going on that is still classed as conspiracy, which they are saying is not. So there is things, so people are waking up. And what the challenge we have at the moment is many people who wouldn't have regarded themselves as light workers or healers or whatever are waking up at it's like almost like they're just there. So what's happening is a lot of the healing community are, are, are attracting people that in some ways can be more switched on in what they are. And they know they need to start to up level to be able to help them, because if you do not know what's going on, you're not aware, and you don't have the tools to help them deal with the things that they're dealing with, because a lot of it is psychic and spiritual. There's a lot of darker elements going on psychically and spiritually. And a lot of healers are feeling a bit disconnected and know that it's time to up level, because some of the tools that they were using before are not strong enough to deal with some of the other things that's going on. And that's making people feel a bit alone, because they feel helpless, or they feel as if they're aware of things but they don't know what to do. There is a bigger community than you will ever imagine. There is thousands and even more tens of thousands of healers, I mean, that are out, and light workers and starseeds that are doing a lot of advanced work, that it's just you need to really find your tribe and understand that your tribe is here, right? And even if everybody doesn't agree 100% with exactly how you view things, it's okay. And that's one of the hardest things I know. For me personally, I had a lot of experiences that proved over and over again that certain things were definitely not true. And it made me go down a lonely, lonely path, because my experience was different from what people were telling me, what they were taught out of a book, basically, or taught by another teacher, but hadn't experienced. And we all sometimes go through that lonely road, and there's certain paths of our spiritual awakening that we have to do alone, unfortunately. And what I mean by alone, there's certain aspects of it that someone can help hold our hands and support us, but there's some things, part of that shift in our awakening, we have to go through the dark night of the soul to move forward, right? Now, I know I've went on a bit about it, but I'm trying to kind of encompass a lot of what's going on in relation to a lot of people I've been speaking to. Okay, so the second card is from the Akashic realms, and I'm just going to, because this one is again, Patricia's cards, it's always pronounced, I never know how. Patricia is actually Brazilian, but she has got a very Lemurian energy, right? But anyway, so the Zurinek, right? The teacher of dream travel, right? Now, this card, I always say, even though spiritual teachers can have their own what that's supposed to represent, I always believe in a reading that they can. When I saw this card, I had something else come through for me, but I'm going to share some of what she says and explain what else I think is coming through here, right? So, he facilitates knowledge and wisdom from the higher planes during sleep. He opens portals when the seeker is ready to understand and absorb the knowledge. And this is all about being able to travel to unseen worlds in dreams, and to be able to open yourself up. And if you think about when we're in a dream state or when we're sleeping, we have very much least resistance, because the egoic mind is not trying to control it, right? And of course, sometimes in dreams and things and our unconscious fears come up. But what you do have in a dreamlike state and a relaxed state is the way that the brain waves and everything else in your body waves are working. You're more kind of passive and open to things that the conscious mind will struggle with. And what this is a big reminder is that, no, I believe that, see, one of the things that I've always taught is relaxation therapy. And relaxation is such an important, when someone can get into deep states of relaxation, they are in a state of being. When people are in a state of anxiety, stress, triggers, anger, frustration, annoyance, they're disconnected in many ways from their connection, their channel, right? And they're not allowing the light to flow. When you're in a state of sleep, what happens? The ego in relation to trying to control everything, and only filtering everything that comes in. So one of the things is, for example, if you go to anyone that's a psychic medium, everyone will have a different interpretation of what they see, or when they're trying to explain something. And some of it might describe it with great accuracy, exactly, or some people might get it slightly wrong or big wrong just because of how they interpret something, right? And how their channel and how they see things, and also where they're getting their information from, right? But we're the same. There is some things we all have wounding around, and our own perception of life in certain areas is very distorted because of the experiences we have. So when we pass information through us, when it goes passed through a distorted mind, consciously distorted mind, we process it in a distorted way. But when we're in a state of sleep, we can, bring downloads. That's why when we're deep states of meditation and we're in that state of being, we're more open to what is, especially when we are only consciously bringing in through the highest dimensions of light, right? That we're not just attached to certain things. When we actually say that we only want the highest truth, the highest divine light, we're actually allowing things to come through. But particularly when we're in a deep state of meditation or relaxation, if you try and do that with someone who finds it difficult to meditate, who's not got a clear crown or a clear third eye, there may be a lot of distortions and they might be bringing through other things, right? So, this is reminding you that that a lot of things are going to come through for you, the more that you are relaxed and in this the sleep state, you have so many other things coming through. Now, it's telling you to, when you go to bed, have a pencil and paper beside the bed. So before sleep, I never go with some of these types of, I wouldn't say this, I always say this represents a card. I think there's a lot of things in the spiritual community that sometimes interpretations of, how could you say, masters of things that are not of the light. So what I would say is you don't have to connect to something particularly, and maybe Christ consciousness is more, purity, but the divine light, and ask that anything that you need to know, that you need to be seen, that you're opening yourself up to the highest divine truth and the highest divine light, and anything that's to come through to help and support you at this time will do through your sleep. And if you have pencil and paper or a notepad or whatever beside you, some people use a voice recorder. I struggle tonight, so a voice recorder can be useful, as then it can help you make sure that you're getting the right interpretation, because when we wake up, we're still in the relaxed state. So the egoic mind is not trying to take something and make it into something that's not exactly what was coming through for you, right? Now, one of the things about this card when I saw this, to me, was just the channeling of light and love. You see, it's like a real gold, and it's like someone light up, and you can see the heart in there, and there's a real connection with the crown. So it's about really stepping in. And to me, and you might interpret this differently, this is me, interpreting it as being open to the light of God, open to the Christ consciousness, open to the Holy Spirit in relation to divinity, and saying that I am open, I am a vessel, kind of use me, and give me the messages that I need through, let it pass through. So it's it's going past the ego, it's going past the human aspect, and it's the soul, and you're open, and you're open in a different realm than what sometimes we are when we're in the human aspect in everyday life, okay, with our human fears. So this is a beautiful card, right? And this is so important about open yourself and be open to what comes through in your dreams, okay? So the third card is by what's her name again? Rebecca Campbell. It's work like cards, and again, some people use different realms and some different names for people and things like that. This card is just about transformation. I'll be honest, I don't really resonate with the image of the person, but what if you look at the kind of halo at the top, and things are changing at a cellular level, deep healing. Now, one of the things that we know as light workers and healers, and particularly, as healers, those of you particularly who work with energy, because some people call themselves healers, but they maybe not as consciously aware of energy and work with energy. So there's different layers to that. But one of the things that a lot of us are aware of as healers is how energy has shifted. Energy has been shifting for a long time, and how energy is coming through, but also how what people need can be very different, right? So I think, there's lots of layers to this, but I'll give you an example. So one of the conditions which it took me many years to recognise that I actually had was Lyme. And Lyme has, let's say, it's supposed to be a bio, and then there's another word in its weapon, right? It was, if you look into the history of Connecticut and what happened and what was released by the military, and then what happened and how tick bites, what happens and how they got these certain things element. And I had lots of problems sometimes with certain healing modalities and certain experiences and things that just weren't working for me. They were actually making me, it wasn't just a healing crisis, it was making me ill in the long term. And then I started working with kind of different advanced teachers who work with different types of energy, and it was more delicate and specific, so that you're being more refined with certain things, and it worked better. And it made me, it actually was refreshing because it helped me understand certain things that I just knew at a soul level, that some things weren't just as what we exactly were told about different elements about healing and where and how healing was coming through and things like that. Now, also, I've had other people challenge my beliefs and things that I did believe and found out that definitely weren't true. And people that were, how could you say, strong enough to challenge me and strong enough to help me learn. And I'm so grateful for these people, because they were all about truth and about helping open me up rather than worrying about offending me, right? And what we're understanding is that there is so many more things to transformation and healing than people are aware of. There's a lot more goes on, right? But also we're getting access to energy, and because of what's going on in humanity at the moment, we're actually getting more spiritual support than we ever have, right? So when we think about the first card, right, about being alone, we're not alone. We have more spiritual support. There is more good things, even though there's a lot darker that's getting exposed. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and a lot more spiritual support than we can think. Even when things start to look as if they are getting really insane. And I know some of you might say, well, they're already insane. But the thing is, sometimes the more things get insane, we don't see always the light behind it, but there is often another point. And I do believe that humanity, we're being a lot of light workers in humanity at a certain level are getting a lot of spiritual support to raise their consciousness. And it's like us, there's things that happen, people in it really fast are accelerating very fast into levels of consciousness. You're seeing people who had no spiritual awareness at all going and then light bulb moments, and they're working very advanced ways than many of us have been working 10, 20, 30 years. So you're seeing some people that really, and then, so we all have different patterns. But at a cellular level, energy is shifting, and that's why modalities and energy tools are shifting, because they have to be able to proceed with that level of frequency. It's like if you think about computers, as data and RAM and speed got faster in the internet, and things people required more speed and more, and the computers had to be able to handle that. So the computers had to be more robust. The software and the tools had to be different to accommodate that frequency and that vibration. And some of it was completely different than what was before. It's the same, right? Now, we're all transforming, right? So a lot of us are really now up level and really into our purpose, into the next stage of our mission or our purpose. And some of it can be very uncomfortable, but some of it is so beautiful and powerful, right? But we are getting that transformation. We're getting tremendous amount of light is coming through us and shifting and there to support us if we open ourselves up to it. But if we have a closed mind, or if we're closing in and hiding our head and we don't want, we are not allowing the light. And it's the same if you're not willing to look at the shadow within yourself, or your own triggers, or taking self-responsibility for things and blaming everyone else, or you're not willing to look at things that are going on in society and the shadow and the darker side that's going on in society. everything's a reflection of what goes on in some element within us, even the darker. It's just like humanity. We've got to remember we're all part of the consciousness. And if we are not willing to look at it and also have a bit of self-compassion and love, even for open our heart, even into the most heinous things, and have a different level of awareness, we don't bring the light. But the light is, there's so much going on at the moment to help us and to, it's almost like we're getting blasted with things to help raise us so that we can deal with what is being presented and what humanity needs right now. Okay, now when we're open to transformation, the key is being open and allowing the channel, right? When you are, it's like everything in life. If you're not open to something, if you're not willing to see, to be open to there's more than what you think there is, and if you're not open to the light, if you're not willing to go out and stay in the sun, if you're going to hide away, you know, you're always going to, shut yourself off and disconnect yourself. But it's the same as if someone is not as afraid of the dark and they never go out in the dark. That fear always remains by them not looking at the dark, not facing the dark, right? But we are changing. So this is all about changing at a cellular level. You're not who you were a year ago or who you will soon be. And this is just a good example about how much we're shifting, right? You're in between. You're emerging half risen, half falling. Keep doing the work. You are transforming. And this is all about inner work. It's so important as spiritual workers that we do as much work on ourselves that we ever do with other people. And it's so important. And it's because it's the age of awakening, it's been very transparent when we're not doing the work. It's very transparent when people are not speaking the truth, they're only doing it for money. It's became very apparent where people have actually put their contracts and their money before what was divine truth or what was going on, and maybe doing things that in many ways are so far from integrity. And it's just because they're saving face and they don't want to lose, and lots of things have on. And I know a lot of people in the spiritual community are very disappointed with people that they followed and certain things that they did just to get money or to keep their contracts or to keep their books, right? People that they thought very differently. But it's also a good lesson in discernment and a lesson about us all tapping into our own truth and our own learning, and about always when we do go, because of course, I know it's important that we all go into our own inner guidance, whatever, but I have to honestly say that there's certain things I would never have been open to up to or understood if I didn't open myself up to other teachers. And I'm never ever going to say that nobody is any less aware and more aware, because I don't believe that's true. I've met many teachers that have been far more spiritually and consciously aware of things that I just wasn't aware of, and I would never have learned. And my ego would be, if my ego tells me that I know everything, there's something far wrong. That's the way I look at it. I'm not saying at a soul level we all can have access to that thing, but I think there is also so much that we can learn. We have to open ourselves up, but we are getting opened up. We are getting activated. We're growing up. We're becoming most mature spiritual workers. We're no longer children just playing at it. It's light work is not this fancy term, but just love light and just about signing up for a course in some spiritual course or psychic course or healing course and calling yourself a healer. It's a very, very, there's a joyous part of it, there's a powerful, but there's also an aspect of, there's some things that we have to take seriously, and it's not all love, light and joy and no hard work, right? And that's the key. You're going to look back at this time with awe, right? Because there's so much happening in your inner world and within yourselves. It's time to release all ways of being that have kept you in the fight or flight response, or the fight, flight, freeze response. Choose a new way of being where trauma is not the driving force. All childhood patterns are rising up to be healed. Allow yourself to observe them and feel them without attachment, and they'll loosen their grip and fall away. You've been called to find new ways to self-soothe, right? And it's all about the deeper levels of healing, right? And the energetic shifts and the healing support that's coming through, and how you're going to see the world differently. You're going to be differently. Okay, you're going to work differently, you're going to act differently, you're going to support people differently. It's all about this up leveling of consciousness, up leveling physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, right? And we need that to be able to empower others to be more themselves and to do, because a lot of us will be supporting the people that are going to make the biggest changes. So we are part of the puzzle, but there is a lot of people that are going to be the architects of the new world. There's people that are going to be the leaders or the supporters of the new world. There's people that are going to make things happen. There's going to be a lot of people who even like healing the masculine. We're going to be the people that are going to be able to be more forthright and say no and demand change and be firm. And we are there helping to heal the parts of humanity within ourselves and the collective that has been wounded, that has subjected to all sorts of distortions. And we're also helping people open up to new dimensions and to new possibilities, new ideas, just like we have to be. If we go in just by the perception of what we're taught in one or two or three courses, we are still stuck in a certain way of being. And transformation is always about opening the mind and open ourselves up to all sorts of magic possibilities and synchronicities. It's an amazing time. So remember that you are not alone. There is a sisterhood, there is the light work community, there is more community than what you think there is. But also it's partly sometimes about us being willing to engage with others and not just look at it from the self. Sometimes when we're looking at it from I'm just alone and I'm just me, we're looking from the victim mentality rather than actively being part of a community, actively supporting others. When we reach our hand out to other people, even with slightly different opinions, and we try and work together, we create that community, right? The second one is about that, about your dreams, about, taking a piece and pen, paper and pencil to your bed or, a journal, so that when you're in the dreamlike state and you're more in a sleep state or a relaxed, that being state, when you're more, the ego is more kind of out and you're more disconnected from the distractions and your fears and all that the messages will come through. And sometimes it can be unconscious fears that come through that need to be healed and wounded that you're not addressing, right? But if we look at it, it's more about this heart, the channel, a clear light, a clear connection, and always asking for information from the divine truth and from divine light. Always ask for only the highest divine truth. That's so important. And last but not least, and about we're getting so much transformation in the light. We are all being able to, how could you say, allow in more light? Because when the dark is exposed and when things get exposed, some of it, the power starts to. So the easiest way to say it is like illusion, right? And it's funny because I was going to try and talk about illusion, but the cards never come up, but it is related. So if you think about delusion, somebody that's delusional or an illusionist, right? It's all about trying to pretend that there's something there or trying to convince people of something. Like, for example, the darker side of the magician and the magician archetype can be it wants to trick people, it wants to pretend that it knows more than it does, or that it can create more magic than what it can, and it can do things it can't do, or it tries to hide something, right? So when there's a lot of illusion going on, it's just the dark hides it. But when we shine the light on it, it no longer has the power. Because when something's exposed, it's vulnerable. And when the more something is vulnerable, it starts breaking up because everybody can see it, right? Now, that's why, so the more things that are brought to light within ourselves, our own shadow, our own triggers, the more that the things are exposed, and the more that we allow in, we're getting that support and we open ourselves up to different levels of support and transformation happens. We allow more light into cells, we allow more light into the world. Because if there's lots of darkness and nooks and crannies and things that have been hidden, there's been no light there. But once the light starts moving in, things start to change and shift. We can allow more light in. So everyone, every single person in the humanity, even the darker aspect, there's actually been light shine. That's how there's struggle. That's why there's a lot of reaction now. That's why there's a lot of the negative side of life. If you think the people have tried to cause a lot of illusion and deceit, you know, a lot of this deception, lots of things that go on in different realms of society. They're trying to hammer things up now because they're getting exposed, but it's crumbling because the light, and we are all as human beings feeling our power more. And we have to, as light workers and people that support other people, we obviously have to be really working on that and expanding that to be able to support other people. You can't support other people when they're at a higher level than you. Of, you know, in certain areas, you know, you have to be able to, so it's about doing the work, okay? So have a lovely week, everyone, okay? And just remember, you're not alone. You're more powerful than you think you are. And no matter what's going on at the moment, it's just temporary. And sometimes the most powerful, the most hardest things that can happen in a business, or uncomfortable things that can happen in your business and even your own life path, can be your biggest things that transform you and take you in another level that you never ever imagined in your life and in your business. Bye-bye for now.